People assume royal siblings are close, that blood creates loyalty, that family means unity. They're wrong. My brother and I share a name. We share a family, we share history, but we don't share understanding. Something happened between us, not loudly, not publicly, but deeply. And that something created a distance that will never close. Today I'm going to tell you what happened, not to blame him, not to justify myself, but to explain why two people born from the same family can end up living in completely different worlds. Even while standing in the same room, we weren't always distant. When we were younger, things were different, not perfect, but simpler. We were brothers, not rivals, not strangers, just brothers. We played together, we learned together, we existed in the same world, with the same expectations, the same pressures, the same future looming over both of us. Back then, there was solidarity, a quiet understanding that we were both trapped inside something we didn't choose, that we both carried weight, that we both struggled. We didn't talk about it often. Royal families don't encourage emotional expression, but we knew, and that knowing created a bond not deep, but real. But then something changed, not all at once, gradually. As we got older, our paths diverged. I became crown prince, he didn't. And that distinction, that single, unchangeable distinction, changed everything. Because being crown prince doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see everyone else, including your brother. The distance began the day I was named crown prince. I didn't notice it immediately. I was too focused on the weight that had just been placed on me, the expectations, the pressure, the sudden reality that my entire future had been decided and locked. But my brother noticed. I could see it in his eyes. Not anger, not jealousy exactly, something quieter. Relief and resentment both at the same time. Relief because the burden wasn't his. He would never have to carry the weight I now carried. He would never have to sacrifice the way I would have to sacrifice. He would never lose his freedom the way I was about to lose mine. But also resentment, because I was chosen and he wasn't. In royal families, being chosen means you matter more, not as a person, but as a function. And that distinction, that invisible but undeniable hierarchy, creates distance, even when no one wants it to. I became the future. He became secondary. And secondary in a family built on legacy means invisible, not literally, but functionally. His opinions mattered less. His choices were scrutinized less. His presence was noted less. Because the future was me, not him. And that reality, that permanent, unchangeable reality, changed how we related to each other. I started treating him differently, not consciously. But it happened. I became more formal, more guarded, more aware that he was watching, measuring, comparing. And he started treating me differently too, not with warmth, with distance, with the quiet awareness that we were no longer equals. We were crown prince and brother, and that distinction made intimacy impossible. The moment everything truly broke wasn't dramatic. It was a conversation, a simple, stupid conversation that revealed everything we had been avoiding. We were talking about the future, about responsibilities, about the family, and I said something I thought was harmless. I said, "You don't understand the pressure I'm under." It was true. He didn't, because he wasn't crown prince. He would never carry the weight I carried. But saying it out loud, saying it to him, that was a mistake, because it implied something I didn't mean, that his life was easy, that his struggles didn't matter, that my burden was the only one worth acknowledging. He went quiet, not the comfortable quiet of understanding, the cold quiet of hurt. And then he said something I'll never forget. "You think being in your shadow is easier? You think watching everyone prioritize you, always you, doesn't hurt? You think I don't carry weight just because it's invisible?" His voice shook. not with anger, with pain. Pain I had never acknowledged, pain I had never even noticed, because I was too focused on my own. That moment shattered something between us, because he was right. I had been so consumed by my own burden that I never considered his. The burden of being secondary, of being overlooked, of being loved, but never prioritized. That burden is different from mine, but it's real, and I had dismissed it, not intentionally, but effectively. And dismissal, even unintentional, creates wounds that don't heal. After that conversation, we never talked about it again, not because we resolved it, but because royal families don't process conflict. They bury, they move forward, they perform unity even when unity doesn't exist. So we did what we were trained to do. We pretended nothing happened. We appeared together at events, we smiled for cameras, we fulfilled our roles. But privately, the distance remained, and it grew, not because of more conflict, but because the original wound was never addressed. It just festered. I tried once to apologize, not directly, but indirectly. I reached out, asked how he was, tried to create space for connection, but he didn't take it, not because he's cruel, but because apologies without change are empty, and nothing had changed. I was still crown prince. He was still secondary. The hierarchy that created the problem still existed, and as long as it existed, we couldn't fix what was broken, because fixing it would have required me to acknowledge that my position hurt him, and acknowledging that would have meant questioning the system itself. And questioning the system is something I'm not allowed to do. So we stayed distant, not enemies, not strangers, but not brothers, not really. Just two people who share blood and history, but nothing else. The distance between me and my brother affects me more than I admit, because he's the only person who truly understands what this life is like. He grew up inside it. He knows the expectations, the pressure, the isolation. He's the only person who could understand what I carry. But he's also the person I can't talk to, because our relationship is defined by the hierarchy that hurt him, and that hierarchy makes honesty impossible. So I carry everything alone, not because I want to, but because the one person who could understand is the one person I can't reach. I also live with guilt, guilt that my position hurt him, guilt that I didn't notice his pain sooner, guilt that I said things that dismissed his struggle. That guilt doesn't fade, it just sits constant, quiet, unresolved, because I can't apologize properly, not without acknowledging that the system is flawed, and acknowledging that would undermine everything I represent. So the guilt stays, and the distance stays, and we both live with it without ever talking about it. If I could speak to him honestly, I would say this: I'm sorry not for being crown prince. I didn't choose that, but for not seeing your pain, for being so consumed by my own burden that I didn't acknowledge yours, for making you feel invisible, even unintentionally. I would also say this: I know it's not fair, that I was chosen and you weren't, that my life matters more institutionally, that your struggles are overlooked because mine are more visible. None of that is fair, and I'm sorry you have to live with it. I would also tell him this: I miss you. Not the formal version of you I see at events, the real you, the one I knew before titles mattered, before hierarchy created distance, before we became roles instead of brothers. I miss that, and I don't know how to get it back, because the system that separated us still exists, and neither of us can change it. So we just exist inside it, separately even when we're standing side by side. I would also say this: your life matters, not because of position, not because of title, but because you're my brother, and that should mean more than hierarchy, but it doesn't. And I hate that. I hate that our family values position over connection, that it prioritizes function over feeling, that it creates distance between people who should be close, but I can't change it. I can only acknowledge it and hope that acknowledgement, even silent acknowledgement, means something. Today, my brother and I coexist. We're not close. We're not enemies. We're just separate. We appear together when required. We fulfill family obligations. We maintain the image, but privately, there's nothing, no conversations that matter, no connection that feels real, no understanding that goes beyond surface, just distance, polite, permanent, unspoken, and we both accept it, not because we want to, but because fixing it would require honesty, and honesty would expose wounds the family doesn't want to acknowledge. So we stay silent and we stay distant. And we both live with the knowledge that we could have been close if the system had allowed it, but it didn't, and it never will. What happened between me and my brother? We were separated by a title, by a hierarchy neither of us chose, by a system that values position over relationship. I became crown prince. He became secondary. And that distinction, that permanent, unchangeable distinction, created a distance we can never close, not because we don't care, but because the system doesn't allow closeness between people on different levels. I hurt him by not seeing his pain, by dismissing his struggle, by being so consumed by my own burden that I forgot he was carrying one too. And he hurt me by pulling away, by choosing distance over honesty, by giving up on connection before I even realized it was breaking. We're both victims, not of each other, but of a system that makes family secondary to function. And we both live with that now, not happily, not angrily, just separately. Two brothers who share everything except understanding. That's what happened between me and my brother. Not a fight, not betrayal, just a slow, quiet fracture caused by a system that makes intimacy impossible, even between people who should be closest. If you've ever been separated from family by circumstances you couldn't control, you understand. Distance isn't always a choice. Sometimes it's just the cost of the roles we're forced to play. Thank you for listening.